Hello, everyone. I'm Rafi, and I'm here with David Atkinson, the Chief Commercial Officer of Holo. And I'd like to ask him some few personal questions to get a small glimpse into the Holo community and culture. So, David, can you introduce yourself? Who are you?
Oh, thank you so much. So nice to be here. I'm David Atkinson. I just turned 39. I'm Australian originally. Live in London. I've been working with the team since 2017 when we got together and first talked about doing an ICO. Well, I have to admit, I was a little skeptical. So when everyone said like, oh, a bunch of people got together and were living in a house in San Francisco, and I thought, no, I'll stay here in London. I'm going to do my thing. Sounds a bit too hippie for me. I'm just going to do my thing and let's see how this goes. So yeah, I was a bit skeptical to start.
Okay, cool. That sounds really interesting, actually. I haven't heard the story before. What is it you do for Holo?
Yeah, so a few different things. My accountabilities are to the ecosystem, so applications getting built on Holochain, demand for Holo, the hosting service, getting people to understand Holo Fuel. So that part of the ecosystem, as well as community. Community that could be running events, enabling developers, supporting developers have an amazing experience of Holochain, teaching the philosophy that underpins Holochain in the world, community service, these kind of areas. And alongside, communications, marketing, partnerships. So that's sort of the broad world of accountabilities. Now, it's not saying that I do these things because there's amazing members of each team, and how I like to work is that we find people who have unique gifts in these particular areas. And hopefully, Rafi, through your series, you're going to meet and talk to some of these guys, but we find people with absolutely amazing gifts and help create an environment where they can thrive based on their gifts, where they're supported to work with others who are gifted in areas that they're not so much, and to find people that are completely intrinsically motivated for the kind of work that they do. So really like to find someone in their gifts operating in right placement or operating their complete sweet spot, doing something that they're completely motivated. And that's my passion. So when I talk about the span of accountabilities, it's an absolute joy to be able to work with people.
Wow, that sounds really amazing. So you basically have an overview of these people and of the work that needs to be done, and then you can facilitate a bit.
I'd say an underview. If that works, because what we're trying to do is enable people to really, I guess, in a way, run their own businesses.
Yeah.
And so when you find someone who understands, the philosophical underpinnings of what we're building, then it's not for me to sit above and dictate. It's actually for me to sit alongside or underneath and support.
So you're like the mycelium network in a forest.
Yeah, a fragment of that. I would not want to oversell it at all. And of course, this is a real interplay, because there's times where you're inviting someone to step into the possibilities, to step into the future, to step into a role. And then there's times when people are then into that possibility and then absolutely going for it. And so what's needed of me changes all the time. And what's needed from me for different people changes based on person, where they're at in their life, all these kind of things. Yeah, I just want to make sure that when I'm giving this overview, what people understand is like what we're trying to build in the world is a world that people can build on, a world, a series of economies, a series of applications which allow people to build the world that they're imagining. And so it's really important that the organization runs in the same way. So that's kind of one area that I'm working on. The second is across Mary, Arthur, and Eric and myself. We're kind of like stewarding the organization. So at the moment, that is kind of the executive team of Holo. We don't have a CEO, so I do work in that capacity as well. And that's where leadership is at the moment. That will evolve. And the third thing I do is I work on myself and learn about myself and try and grow. And that's crucially important because for me, I believe deeply in the concept of requisite variety, and my ability to operate in and understand the world is based on my capacity to understand the world and the systems I'm interacting in. So the more I can grow that capacity, the more I can move through the world. And I think that's crucial in a decentralized world, and it's crucial for people who are working in this area to be able to build their inner game so that their outer game grows. So that's the third, to me, core responsibility and commitment I have to myself to grow, and that could be both personal level, like for my relationship with my wife, my kids, friends, my community, and work level, exactly the same thing. So that means that when I make mistakes, when I handle things incorrectly, when there's conflict that I'm involved in, that if I can be continuously learning about myself, then I have a deep practice by which I can understand when things go wrong. And at the same time, when things do go wrong, it gives me greater flexibility to be able to look inside and understand what's happening and then move from there. So please, this is just showing, I think, what a low base I came from and the daily struggle just to know who I am and be myself and work with clear boundaries, clear communication, and really effectively in a distributed environment. I couldn't say I'm good at it, but it's a daily practice to get good at it.
Yeah, definitely know what you mean there. Same here. So what are you working on right now?
One, I'm working on making sure everyone in the teams I described are set up and supported to thrive. That's daily. Second is right now, as in when we're recording this in early July 2019, I think there's a tension with where we're at in the project and the expectations that the community have. So I'm just working as much as I can to bridge the gap that exists between the two and hopefully find just a way of us understanding the community a little bit better and working to meet different people's needs there, and as well the community understanding where we're at, both as an organization, part of this.
Which is why we do this video.
Exactly. And also from a technology perspective. So that's on my mind. So people are on my mind, that's on my mind, and adoption's hugely on. So just spending time in my own way, working through the world of business and the crypto world, finding places where I can see a deep understanding of decentralized economies and an opportunity for Holochain and Holo to be part of the solution. And, generally, I don't so much follow this principle of creating these massive buzz or these massive relationships before we have a product. Mm-hmm. And so we're working much more on the principle of finding human relationships that connect in a way that says, hey, what you're building and what we're building, they fit. And so when we're ready and you're ready, let's come together. And finding as many of those is the other thing that I'm doing, so that when the product's ready, it's not ready in a vortex and we have to build almost from scratch, or we build from the existing community we have. What I'd like to see is, as the product becomes ready, we have these networks of relationships that can turn on 1 month, another month, based on this mutual trust and mutual understanding, and the concept of mutual sovereignty, really, which is we're working together to build a world that we both believe in.
Very cool. Are there any difficulties that you're struggling with that you haven't mentioned already?
All the time. Well, personal difficulties. There are times I struggle to reach out when I'm struggling with something. There are times where I feel like I have some tools that are really effective and I miss the ones that I don't use regularly. So, for example, if there's conflict, it's not natural for me to get a group together and discuss that conflict. And that's a big miss at times, because what the natural is to address it one-to-one. And sometimes if there are 4 or 5 people involved, getting everybody together and creating a space where people can just listen and hear, come to a sense and move on is way more effective than all the individual conversations. And how to do that everything is in the lens of how to do this in a distributed environment. Okay? And I don't think it's harder full stop, I think it's a whole new set of communication patterns and challenges. I'll tell you how I'm addressing the struggles. Like, really, to me, the struggles are a limitation of my own imagination. And so the more I can grow my imagination, the more the struggles change, but the less I struggle with something fixed that's blocking me. Mm-hmm. And that is also, to me, this, how does this completely internet-worked, decentralized world work? Well, it's really only limited by my imagination. And so my imagination can't see that other people work in different ways, can't see, if I don't believe I can build deep relationships in, virtually as deep as I can face to face, if I believe that I'm right, and all these things, then my imagination's limiting what's possible. And I struggle. And then when I can look and open up my imagination, the solution can unfold.
So needs sometimes to step back and to let the mind wander a bit.
Exactly. Although, and I struggle with frustrations. I struggle with too many communication channels. Struggle when I see something that I'm frustrated by, I'm out of my space, and especially as a struggle for context. So when I read something and you feel like, oh, community's frustrated, and that hurts me inside, and at the same time think, oh, how do I bridge that gap and get someone to see this? I read a message and I just, so I don't even understand the context that someone's writing in. So it's this struggle. It's like, what if I could imagine that what I believe they're saying is completely different from what they're actually saying? Mm-hmm. So that's what you can do when you step back, but in the heat of the moment, it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many different points of views that can influence why someone says something the way he says it.
Exactly.
Or writes, What gets you excited about the project?
I think how multifaceted or multidimensional it is, and then that asks for me to be able to work in so many different dimensions. So it allows me to stretch myself, because stretching myself is also in service of the project. If I just take the different areas, I'm so excited about the way Holochain will transform industries, and especially movement, especially different forms of transportation, aviation, and the way that can be fully reimagined from an agent perspective. Then in terms of the hosting, I'm so excited about the way we're going to interconnect people and their kind of the use of their resources and what that will enable, and the enabling of organizations or businesses to self-run. I'm so excited about how that changes the economics of business, and how that changes the infrastructure costs of business, and how that introduces a completely new dimension into the link between a business and its users, and how they start to morph. And if the users are being paid to run the computing of the business, or run the application of the business, then what also can be possible? So I'm very excited about that. And then I'm so excited, as those two things emerge, to see how Holo Fuel starts to solve the problems of distributed hosting and starts to represent the commodity of distributed hosting, and then what is possible from there.
Lovely points. Lots to be excited about, I think. Yeah. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for doing this.
Wonderful.